Yeah,
saying?
absolutely. Um, so what do you think, as these things are being developed, kind of the age old question, something that I feel like has always been around, churches and pastoral leadership and those kind of things. Obviously, we were just talking before we kind of started recording. You're a youth director. I'm a youth pastor.
Yeah,
You've
I'm working towards that. Yeah, yeah,
but you've been in pastoral roles even out here. That's how we
yeah,
got
yeah. Yeah.
connected, and those kind of things. And so, what is the relationship between, the church, from the pulpit, being able to talk about these things, address these things? Should they address these things, from the pulpit? Obviously, you teach on these things, right? There's going to be an intersection just naturally between some of the
100%.
topics and all of those things. But I'm talking more explicitly. There was a
Like the
policy.
relationship between the church and the state.
Yeah, like there was a policy between, that Donald Trump lifted specifically on church, nonprofits and 501c3s, where it allowed for churches to, specifically endorse candidates, whereas other nonprofits were not, able to, enact those same things. And so
Mm.
should that be the role of the church? Should that be what we talk about in, pulpit and preaching ministries and those kind of things? Obviously, there's the room for the intersection where it's going to naturally do that.
Mhm.
But I'm talking about like building topical series, building, the activism stuff that you see, in places like Turning Point, USA Faith, and some of those things.
Right.
Is that the correct direction, for the church, flipping it from just the societal side of the stuff?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As far as like the church's involvement, like I'll give an example. I think that the church in the primary should be politically active in the community that they're in, right? And so if so because all you're saying is, hey, like these are people that exist in the community, and therefore these individuals 100% have the right to be active locally, right? Which I think local activism is generally speaking, it may not be get as much publicity, but I think it's just more effective in the long play. Just my opinion. So I believe, in regards to the Sunday gathering, because this is kind of more what we're inferring is what is preached from the pulpit on the Sunday morning. I am of the vice that the purpose of the Sunday morning is not to preach the vision of the church. Believe that I do not believe that it is for the sake of promoting culture in the church. I do not believe that it is for the sake of necessarily getting people to serve. I don't believe it's for the sake of getting people to give, even though I think teachings can exist on all four of those things in a very fair and soluble way. The primary purpose of the Sunday morning is to teach the word of God and to, from the pulpit, disciple your people, right? Not to preach a good sermon, not to inspire people, not to make sure that they walk out feeling good. It's so that way they come into intellectual understanding about what the word of God and the tradition of the church for the past 2000 years teaches on these issues, right? That is our primary. And if we're treating anything else as a primary, then we're wasting our time. And it's really, generally speaking, built on the pride of man. Because I've been a part of churches and I've visited churches and seen sermons that are preached where they preach the vision of the church from a single verse that they took out of context, and it's really just a waste of time of the believer. Um, because what you're teaching them to do is you're teaching them to believe in fundamentally something like and I'm ranting a little bit here, but you do not get to have a vision for your church that is anything different, anything less than, or anything more than the vision of the church that Christ describes in the Great Commission. You do not get to have anything different. You do not get to give alternatives. You do not get to say, "Oh, well, I feel like evangelism is the focus for our church in this community." No, like your purpose of the church is to equip the saints to do the work, not for you to do the work so that way the saints feel good. Um, sorry, I'm going off. I'm really like going in right now. Obviously, I think that the church can still do evangelistic events. That's a whole other thing. But I'm saying all that to get to the point of that whenever you're talking about politics and local policy, because you are fundamentally a member of the local community, there's going to be a conversation, and I think that there's teaching that you can have within reason, right? Of how do Christians interact with the political system that they're in, and I think bringing clarity to that, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't see any issue with churches endorsing candidates and saying, "Hey, this is the person that I want to see in," especially on a local level. 'Cause that's where a lot of churches are missing it, is you have super conservative churches that are sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to Donald Trump's campaign, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not gonna be as effective as changing the community that you're in, than maybe endorsing local governors and local campaigns. See what I'm saying? Because again, I think that it kinda goes back to the Christian nationalist view of working from the top down rather than doing the hard thing and working from the bottom up. And so I think that there's a place for it. I think you can 100% do it. I think that if you and let me be clear, I'm a young guy, so I have some very passionate takes on things. And I'm okay with my takes being wrong, and I'm totally fine with that. So that is the disclaimer to everything that I said, that I'm literally just a kid who honestly, as I've walked out this life and as I've studied and as I've learned, I realize I know absolutely nothing. And even in the midst of me knowing absolutely nothing, I've become passionate, very passionate about certain things. But I think that if we're going to exist and if pastors are going to preach in the atmosphere that we have right now, then there's nothing wrong with saying, man, like we should be active where we are because we're members of the community, we're members of this society. But I think that there needs to be a clear like code of conduct for Christians and how we do it, and how we conduct ourselves and the mechanisms that we need to be going through to accomplish our political goals. And there's nothing wrong with the church having a political goal so long as you're doing it through the right way, so long as you aren't trying to top down this thing. So that way, everybody else has to do the things that you believe in and the things that you agree on, whenever it's may not be a clear representation of what the entire nation believes on this issue. Because again, we're Christians that are existing in a democratic republic. So it becomes amoral for us to do it in a tyrannical way because that is outside of the character of how a Christian should be operating. That's why I love state level politics and state level morality because it becomes a it's a micro version of the macro issue, and you get to solve it on the micro level and actually become effective where you're at.
Mhm. Yeah.
So.